Welcome back to the Tower Tech. I'm Michael C. Today we're taking a look at Civilization 6. I've played Civilization a fair bit. I think I've racked up about 500 hours on it, much to the distress of my beloved. So I'm really excited to be getting a hands-on go at Civilization 6. Came out a couple of days ago. I've played it for no more than a couple of hours, so this would be my first real playthrough. And I thought I'd give you guys a bit of a view of my early experience of the game. First impressions, and essentially to have a look at what the major differences are between Civilization 5 and Civilization 6. So let's kick off with a new game. So very much like Civilization 5, it has many different options for you to set up the game. I'm sure there's a quick, easy start. I'd recommend that you go in here and have a look at these. We're going to start on Prince difficulty, which is normal difficulty, standard game speed. You can go for quick, epic and marathon. Epic and marathon are just going to be silly amounts of time. That's the standard game speed. It still takes tens of hours of play. Personally, I've always been a fan of the continent style map, so we're going to stick with that. And we will go for standard map size. That used to give you 8 characters in Civilization 5, so I assume it's the same here. Advanced settings. We don't want to be a random leader. If you're new to Civilization, don't spend ages worrying about which of these leaders that you can pick. It's going to give you a whole load of detail of different perks that each one has. It's going to mean absolutely nothing to you until you've played the game for a little bit, so just pick a random one. I've already played through a couple of times, so we will go with, and you can find them, Japan. So rule set, standard rules, Prince, ancient era, so you can start anywhere along the various timelines. Map size continents, as I've said. These are the various victory conditions that you get. A little bit different to Civilization 5. Score victory, I'm assuming, is still a timeout victory. So science victory, religious victory, domination victory, and cultural victory. Right, I think we're just about there in terms of settings, so let's start the game.
From the first stirrings of life beneath water to the great beasts of the Stone Age.
The whole game is narrated by Sean Bean. Good to see a Brit appearing in video games. And the sound quality is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the music in Civilization 5 was absolutely fantastic. Lots of great classical music, and I have to say that they've stepped it up a notch for Civilization 6. Absolutely fantastic music quality. Pretty reasonable and fast load times. I was really surprised when I downloaded this just how small the file size on Steam actually was. I'm used to sitting there and waiting for about an hour and a half, 2 hours for a game to download. This literally downloaded in about 30 minutes, which is fab. It's much more about the richness of the game, the thinking of the game. They are pretty complex games, Civilization series. Graphics are fabulous, but nowhere near as demanding as first-person shooter or anything like that. And obviously, I've got dual GTX 1080s in my system, so it can make absolute mincemeat for a game like this. So we start off with a unit called a settler, and essentially what these do is create your first city. Various resources that sit round the settler. So you've got stone here, two sets of stone, and you can build units called builders, and they can improve these tiles. That's going to give certain perks to the city that you found. In the instance of stone, if you put a mine on top of it, it adds production to your city, which means that you can manufacture things faster. Then you get things like luxury resources, so cotton, silk, whales, if you can believe it, stuff like that. They all aid to keeping your civs happy, and it was called happiness in Civilization 5. It's a slightly different model in Civ 6. You have amenities, and you need a certain amount of amenities depending on the number of citizens that you have in each of your cities. I should also say that happiness or amenities as it is in this case. They're not global across your whole civilization like they were in Civilization 5. They are specific and localized to each of your cities. So, in terms of early game, it's pretty key that you found your first city quickly. Don't get too hung up on moving this settler around. You can move them around, but you just waste time. The other civs are getting ahead on you. So we will go straight in and found our first city, which is Kyoto for the Japanese. What you should also be doing is scouting out the area. You're not going to be able to do too much if you haven't met anybody else. There's city-state in Civilization 6, the same as it was in Civilization 5. And of course, the 7 or so civs that I assume have been deployed alongside me. So we will move our warrior and we will go exploring. The way that the map transitions has changed substantially. I have to say, the way that they've done this mapping is absolutely fab, and you get sea monsters and stuff like that, so you get mythical type creatures that sit around the map. Colouring is very different. The graphics are very different in this version of Civ 6. And that's a very subjective thing, right? You're either going to like it or you don't. Personally, for me, I think it looks really, really good. Part of that apparently was driven around the fact that you now get districts in your city. So before, when you build additional buildings, they'd all appear in the central tile that your city sits in, and now they sit around that central tile in districts effectively dotted around the city. So part of the reason for the change of the colouring and the change of the graphics was to make that really clear and visible and easy to access when you're playing the game. We need to choose some production for our city. I would normally recommend going straight for a scout. Back to my previous point, you want to very quickly get out in the map. You want to understand who's there, what's going on, different civilizations that you can interact with, the city-states that you can interact with, and get trade and diplomatic relations up and running as quickly as you can. So let's go for a scout. We also need to choose some research. So the old faithful technology tree is back from Civilization 5. Very familiar things on here. Some of these items that you can research are exactly the same, and indeed have exactly the same perks and wonders that you can build off the back of them. There are some changes woven in there as well. So you need to have a think about where you are, where you're placed, and what you're going to make most use of. So just going back to our map for a second, we've got stone, 2 stones. Mining probably feeling like a pretty sensible thing for us to do. We've got rice there. That's a resource that's going to be used to feed people. So again, when you improve that tile, place a farm on it, you're going to uplift the amount of resources that tile gives you. Cotton as a luxury resource requires imagination. Irrigation. I was going to say imagination. That would seem like a very strange thing to do to harvest cotton. Irrigation would make a lot more sense. So we'll choose research. We're going to go straight in for mining, make use of those tiles, get a really strong set production into that city, start churning out military units. Now Japan is a militaristic state. Their units fight as if they're at full strength even when they've been damaged. So if you're going to play with Japan, you're probably going for a domination victory. You want to start churning out units really early on in the game. Possibly take a civ out early on in the game as well. So we've done all that we can do for this turn. Let's see what the others do. Not a lot, because we haven't met him yet. So we can continue exploring with this chap here. There's nothing else that I can do on this turn, so I'm building my scout in the city. My warrior's off here exploring. I'm researching mining. So skip on to the next turn. Some cattle up here as well. So of course these borders are going to expand much like I did in Civilization 5. So we have to think about making use of that resource either with our capital or with a second city that we roll out with another settler. So some more rice up here. This is pretty good start from a food perspective. So here's our first barbarian. Barbarian's much improved for Civilization 6. So in previous Civ games, they had next to no intelligence, as one would expect a barbarian to have, but painfully so. What they do in this new version is they actually will send out scouts from the camps. The scouts will report back on what they found, and the barbarians will start to send stronger units. So it's advisable, if you can, to start to take these scouts out if you see them, prevent them getting back to the camp. You can also see here now, when you're not actually within visual range of part of the map that you've explored, you get this kind of drawn, penciled over effect on the map. You effectively remember what was there, but you can't actually actively see what's going on at this point in time. I think we're going to chase that barbarian scout down. And there's their camp. It's a spearmen based in that camp there. Another luxury resource over here, diamonds. It's a pretty good. Some bananas. Pretty good placement on the map. There's lots of good natural resources around us. Mountains are always useful as well. They allow you to build particular things, and notwithstanding that point, bloody good to build a city next to them, as it limits the amount of access, the way in which enemy units can route to that city, which helps with defense. And the number of tiles that you can move is going to be dependent on the terrain that you're moving over. So if you're moving through wooded areas or hilly areas, you're only going to be able to move one tile a turn. If you're moving over plains, oh, marble there, another luxury resource. If you're moving over plains, flat areas of the map, you're going to be able to move 2 tiles. Another new feature in Civilization 6 is tribal villages. So I haven't really seen particularly what they do. I'm sure they play a part, perhaps when you're expanding your territory. The villagers share a hidden technical secret. This is also something new to Civilization 6. Depending on particular actions that you take, you get boosts to researching things. It can be anything from meeting someone, bumping into someone, building a particular item within a city, creating a particular unit type. Gives you a little boost, and you don't actually have to be actively researching that technology at the time that you get the boost. As you guys saw, I was researching mining, and my knowledge of the wheel has advanced considerably. Indeed, I'm now halfway researched to finding the wheel.
Reconnaissance units like scouts are unique in that they can gain experience by exploring and discovering parts of the world.
So scouts gain experience from scouting. That would make some sense. They're learning their trade, doing what they're here to do. What I normally do at the beginning of these games is I do a kind of concentric circle around my first city so that you start to get the lay of the land. Once your first scout drops out, you can go off in one particular direction and start trying to meet city-states and other civs. So research mining, time to choose another item to research. Again, having a think about what's around us. Irrigation was going to help us with our luxury resource. We've got deer there, that requires animal husbandry. So you really want to make sure that you're researching things that are going to be useful to you. So it's far too easy to come onto this research screen and just go click, click, click. I want to get back to killing a barbarian. actually it's a strategy game. You need to think these things through. So our animal husbandry is going to help us with the deer, which is going to provide us with food, most likely. Food is going to make our city grow. Oh, they're saying that. We're going to get more food from the cotton, and the cotton is going to provide us a luxury resource. So I think pottery is going to be completely useless to us. It does help with rice. I've got no rice. Oh, no, I do have rice. So I've got rice as a bonus resource there. Well, that's pretty conclusive then. So we do pottery. That's going to allow me to harvest rice. We're going to go straight onto irrigation, which is going to help me with the cotton. So that's done. Scout's been produced by the city. So we need to have a think about what we're going to produce next. Monument's going to provide us +2 culture. We're unlikely to get too harassed this early on in the game, so culture is going to be more helpful to us to help drive our civics, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a second. So I'm going to go with the monument. Warrior is doing a loop round here, keeping him relatively close to the city so that if we need to defend, we are able to do so. So let's get our scout off and going. Next turn.
Our city-state neighbors
That's our
have
first
made a
city-state,
request of us.
Stockholm.
If we can impress them, I think they will.
You get missions from the city-states, much like you did in Civilization 5. They're worth doing. You get all sorts of rewards, gain influence over them, which is going to become helpful later on. There's also the concept of envoys in Civilization 6. I think what's really great about this game is they've built on the mechanics from Civilization 5. They've improved them, tweaked them, added some stuff in. If you're brand new to Civilization altogether, it is going to take you a little while to get your head around all of this. The mechanics of the game are very complicated. For those that have been playing this for a number of years, so Civ 5 I think came out in 2010, 2011. It's been out for 5 or 6 years, and then of course you had 1 through 4 before that. So if you've played none of those games before, you're going to have to be prepared to be patient and learn the mechanics of the game. It is absolutely worth it. As I said, I've played 500 odd hours of this game. Civilization 5 I've played 500 odd hours of. It is absolutely worth getting to grips with the game. The replay value of these is absolutely fantastic. So, our scout's ready to move. So move him down there. And we've got to the coastline already. That's the end of the first part of this early game walkthrough for Civilization 6. Going to upload this video onto YouTube now, and then I'm going to crack straight on with the second part.